Well, welcome along to another episode of Sweet Tea and Coffee. This is actually a historic episode.
It is.
Episode 75. How do you feel about that? Do you feel like we're that old?
I do. I feel like we've been doing this for 75 years.
It's our
It's
Diamond podcast.
Diamond. Okay.
It's our
that's what it is.
Diamond
The
podcast.
75th.
Blake, I have a story.
All right, let me hear it.
I caught a bird. That's the story. That's our cold open story for today. I caught a bird. You know, being a pastor is a strange vocation. You get called for all sorts of strange things. And I got called because a member of our church had a bird in their house, and they did not know how to get that bird out. So somehow I became the long story of, I guess, how I became the guy that was called on. And I got this call and I said, okay, well, I guess I'll go figure out how to get this bird out of this house. So I get over there, and I had another guy with me we were going to figure it out together. And we were starting to open some windows to try to just flush it out of a window. And this bird got on the kitchen floor and seemed like it might stay there a bit. And so I got closer and closer, and then I just decided I'm going to go for it. I'm going to try to just grab it. So I did.
Yeah.
And I was a little nervous because you got to be fast, but if I squeeze too hard,
It's game over for that little bird.
Game over for the little bird. So I didn't, but it screamed whenever I grabbed it. And the people that were with me also screamed when it screamed. Mm-hmm. And, but I captured it successfully.
Yeah.
Don't know if I broke any little bird bones, but I don't think so. And got it outside, and off it flew. So it flew away. I felt like Opie, the episode in Andy Griffith where Opie downs the mother bird and then has to take care of the three.
Yeah.
But then he successfully does it. And I felt that moment of releasing the bird. And
I feel like as pastors, we've had to deal with more wildlife than people around here, and I don't know what's going on.
I don't know if that is quite true. I don't know if that ratio.
Bats and raccoons,
but
and
I don't know. I
birds.
felt pretty good. It was a good tale to.
Well,
so anyway, I caught a bird.
I'm glad you had a success story with the bird.
Yeah, and as a obvious segue, we've got Andy Binford in the house with us.
The Birdman.
I guess he's the Birdman. No, seriously, we've got Andy Binford here. Excited to have a conversation with Andy, but I just felt like everybody needed to hear my bird story.
It's a great story.
So there it is, episode 75. Here it comes. Okay, well, I said we've got Andy here with us, Mr. Andy Binford, and before we started recording, we were having some of the coffee conversation, and you were actually lamenting that you didn't have your cup of coffee here. So now it's obvious that you're living the retired life. If you're sad about not having your cup of coffee at 1:30 in the afternoon, which is when we're recording this, but you were telling us about your coffee routine. You found a few little spots. So here's the question. What for you makes a great coffee shop? What are you looking for when you go into a coffee shop?
The great coffee shop. Well, it may not sound manly, but I like ambiance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The vibe. You got to have a good vibe.
That's what the kids are saying these days.
Yep. And I'm more the kind of the laid back. I like the old brick, the wood, old chairs.
That's all manly things, so I think you're okay with that ambiance.
Yeah, a lot of them, they've got the concrete floors, the stainless steel tops, the chairs. It's cold, it's loud because the sound reverberates, and so. But lots of groups in studying things like that. But the just that kind that you would see maybe. It might not be appropriate to say in here, but an old pub, kind of English pub kind of setting, that it's relaxing and can do a lot of reading, and visiting, and of course.
Do you have a favorite coffee shop that you've ever been to?
Ever,
man, yeah.
Oh goodness, no, I guess not. I know we've obviously frequent Java Jacks here, and shout out to John James, Stephen Shrewsbury, men's group.
Yeah, there we go. There we go.
Yeah. So
that's y'all spot.
That's our spot.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. That's cool. Well, I appreciate you coming on, man. We're still trying to settle the sweet tea or coffee debate, and we haven't made an end to it. But appreciate you taking time to be here.
Absolutely,
man. You've got quite the journey. I really want to get into I have some questions for you. Just. Some conversation based on kind of the season of life you're in now, kind of this post work retirement / busy and still going and figuring out what that looks like. I would love to get into some of that, but let's just kind of get people oriented a little bit with your story. Where did you grow up, and how did you wind up in Nacogdoches? Have you always been here? How'd you get here? Because you've been entrenched in this community a long time. Yeah. So what did your story look like getting to Nacogdoches?
Well, where to begin? We'll just say I was born in El Paso, and I was adopted from there, and as a baby, my people are from the Brazos Valley, so Navasota, Grimes County, and then we moved over this way. My dad was worked for the electric co-op, and so he was a lineman, worked his way up, became boss man. We went out to Sonora, Texas. He ran the power plant out there when cities, generated their own power, and then he got called back to Livingston. They needed him back where he had originally began, and so my grandfather used to walk the line, they call it in the old days, with a single shot 410, shooting squirrels off the line. After the REA came in and dropped a pole in your yard, you knew you were going to get electricity, and so that's been in my family since, I believe it was 1941 when they dropped a pole in my grandparents' yard, and it's so I was sent off to A&M to be electrical engineer, but that's a whole nother story.
Wow!
So I wouldn't have to climb poles as a third generation Binford.
Yeah.
But so Livingston is where we did settle down and did my growing up K through 12 or first through 12, and so that was real important to my mom and dad to find roots. I have a sister; she's adopted as well. She's 7 years older than me, and she still lives in Livingston, and a lot of her family, her kids are there and stuff. And so went off to A&M. And before then, I guess I should say, as far as my partner in life, Shelley, through the Lord's divine will, but in some adversity, her dad had gotten cancer and passed away, and lived in Splendor with him, and came to live in Livingston with her aunt and uncle, and so that's a story in itself how we met. And but
so you met like in high school?
In high school, November of my senior year. So we'll say it's November of '85. Yeah. When I'm in the dark room and along with my buddies developing pictures for the yearbook, and I hear the teacher come into the room, and it's a daily thing. We always love to have fun, so I jump out of the dark room with the yardstick and lift up my teacher's dress with the yardstick and say, "Dress up day."
Oh, and my gosh.
Before Miss White could get me, I jumped back into the dark room and slammed the door. And, of course, in that process, I noticed out of the corner of my eye, there's a new girl in the back of the room, and wearing white pants, red shirt, and Farrah Fawcett hair, two-tone, feathered back. All of you old folks will know what I'm talking about. And then I immediately report to my other two friends in the dark room and said, "New girl."
Oh, my word.
So I came back out.
That's where it all began.
Yeah, that's where it all began, and came back out and took my tongue lashing for Miss White. And so, but it was worth it to see the new girl named Shelley.
The irony as you terrorize Miss White, the irony is that you end up in education. And so
I've
got a story.
I was going to say, well, hang on, because we have some amazing connection in the room between Andy and Blake. But you said you went to A&M for electrical engineering.
I did,
but eventually get into education. So where does that switch?
All the credit to the Lord. It's a divine movement of the Holy Spirit. And y'all going to have to help me not get emotional, and so we can enjoy this podcast.
We can't help you.
And so it was truly something that I did not see coming whatsoever. After, obviously, I was doing what my dad wanted me to do, what I felt I should do as a son. Him and Mom worked hard all those years, sent me to school, first generation. Binford to get a college degree. My mother came out of the cotton fields, 8th grade education, sharecroppers. My dad, anyway, I told you to help me with that, Kendall. Anyway, so a lot of responsibility of wanting to do right by them. And my dad was fortunate enough to get a high school education, but of course World War II had other things planned, and so he had to do his due diligence, and he joined the Navy, and but was soon released. That's a whole other story. It's of chasing rabbits, but
it's okay.
Yeah. So no, I was never at peace about it. Of course, as a teenager, I spent a lot of nights out on trouble calls and with my dad, and turning power on left and right, and just realizing what my future was, and admire them and folks who just don't know the dangerous things that they do. So we kudos to all our linemen, but I just felt that there was something more to life than making money and making a good living, and something that as I was growing in my relationship with the Lord, I knew that I need to do something more eternal for His purposes. And I know we all have to be tent makers at some point in our life, as referring to Paul, that sometimes you got to pay the bills. And so I recall of what I can recall, because I already prefaced Till and Kendall, memory's not that great, and as Blake will know, I'm much older than I once was. But back then at A&M, you could take a 1-hour credit class just to go and sit in, and usually the dean of the college, that department or whatever, back then they called them colleges within the university, and take just this 1 hour pass-fail kind of thing, and they basically it's just a little intro of what their college is, what it is to be whatever this major is that you want to declare. And so I went and sat, like I do in a movie theater. I love to be middle seat kind of guy, because I want the whole thing, and I want to kind of up high and in the middle. And I can take you to the chair where I sat in this old auditorium at A&M, and the dean of the education department comes in. And the man never took his eyes off of me. 300-something of us sitting in there. And he was like preaching. Because I've had preachers, Kendall, who will single you out with that eye. Is it the Spirit that's moving him, or is he something? Yeah. You're trying to not make eye contact. And, back in acting and drama, musicals, stuff like that, they say never make eye contact with the audience. Always look above their heads. But this man is looking straight at me. At least it feels that way. And that's when the Holy Spirit started working. And I remember sitting on the steps of my apartment with my best friend since first grade, old Germ. And we were both in engineering, trying to figure out what in the world we're going to do with our lives, because we're doing this because our parents told us we had to. And I told him I believe I'm being called to be a teacher. And, of course, his mother's a teacher. And, of course, we just both start cackling like, what's going on here? Because I never, even as much fun, and I just love my school experience. I had some great teachers throughout my life. Never during that time did I ever think that the Lord is grooming me and preparing me to be in education. Just didn't see it coming. And so anyway, yeah, so that was a big change. And then needless to say, the conversation I had with my dad was not a good one when it was time to make that change. But by God's grace, he came to peace with it, and especially later in years when we had some great father-son talks as men, it was definitely the Lord's hand in that movement. So anyway, so yeah, intertwined in all that was, of course, Shelley's own journey. When she wanted to go to Oral Roberts, a childhood dream. She grew up in most of the time in St. Louis, and so that was kind of their regional Christian university up that way, was Oral Roberts in Tulsa. And so she did go and do that her freshman year, but then came back down to Sam Houston University, in Huntsville. And so we stayed connected on and off, back and forth. That's a whole long other story about how our travels and to the point where we are today in our life, and where you're wanting to get at is, what does this look like with the retirement and the change of pace in my life and everything?
Well, we've got to get from there to you and Blake. At some point, that journey leads you into a journey in education. You started out teaching, I guess.
That's right.
When did you get to the Nacogdoches area? Was that through teaching, or and then how do you get to Blake? Really, just get us to Blake.
Yeah. Well, the fast forward is, of course, me and Shelley wound up getting married. She finishes her school. I'm teaching. I went and out to Holmes High School in San Antonio, flipped a coin. Where am I going to go with my life? Go do student teaching, all this thing, and I literally did. The scripture talks about casting lots, so prayed over it and stood there where they asked me, where are you going to go? Is it going to be Dallas or San Antonio? Because I wanted something big and far away. So flipped a coin, went to San Antonio, and then when I was finished with that, came back to, and my memories may not be in the right order, but went to Shepherd, Navasota. Then we came to Nacogdoches after that for Shelley to join the new television station, KLSB. Does that sound right?
That was an NBC.
Channel 19?
Yeah. NBC, yeah.
And so she took a job being a reporter. She was radio, television, film. Sam Houston, that's Dan Rather's university, so.
I didn't know that she didn't go the education route in college. It's journalism.
Nope. Journalism. Always wanted to be on television and reporter and all that. And so she, little side note, she has a great piece, KTRE, Channel 9, when she was interning with them. She was on a big drug bust in East Texas and, out there burning weed. And there she was giving the report.
Wow.
Came home in a good mood.
Wow.
We may have to get her on this show.
Yeah, we got some stories to tell.
Oh, there's stories. So, in that regard, obviously, I needed to find something. So the first gig was, it was summertime, so I was teaching at Nacogdoches High. And then I wound up getting a job at Broadus for the next school year. After Broadus, then it was finally out to Central Heights, to Blake's country.
Okay.
What year did you come to Central Heights?
93.
Okay, that was the year that I came to Central Heights too.
Okay.
See, I knew this is going to get interesting.
I didn't know that until just now, but
okay. Yeah. What was your first experience with Andy Binford?
Okay, so I was a pretty quiet kid, and Andy was my algebra, junior high math and algebra teacher, and if you know me, I'm not a huge math guy. It's not been something that just comes easily to me, and so quiet, apprehensive kid in Andy Binford's class. And I can tell you right now, I'm going to preface this story by I still have test anxiety to this day because of this. But he talks about startling people and cutting up, and he tried to make it a nice environment for us in the classroom. So his classroom was had an exterior wall that had a window that looked in between two buildings. I remember this vividly.
The setup is unreal, man.
And so during tests, he would go and he'd open that window up and let some fresh air come in, which was great. We enjoyed it. And I sat right there in front of, like, just in front of that window. And then right in front of me was a metal filing cabinet.
Oh my gosh!
And he mentioned that he went to A&M, and all good A&M boys, they don't leave the school unless they have one of those big gigantic rings on their hand, which you're not wearing today, I noticed. Which is odd. So anyway, so I'm like knee deep in this test, and I'm probably just missing everything, you know. But at some point, Andy sneaks out, and he goes in between those two buildings and sneaks up that side of the wall. I can just imagine in my mind.
Oh, I can tell. You know, I can tell. It's a very vivid memory.
And he takes that ring and he just hits that metal filing cabinet, and I'm just like, I came unglued. I mean, it was just.
How old were you?
I mean, I don't know, 7th, 8th grade, something like that. Yeah. 12, 13 years old. And I remember
your test anxiety?
Oh yeah, it's not good. I still don't do well on math tests for sure. Or any kind of test now.
Oh, man.
But
you're just trying to loosen them up, or what?
Well, you know, hey, obviously, if I can leave them, escape out of the building, come up through an alleyway, you know, and reestablish, you know, scare technique, you know, here if I can looking in, and none of them have looked up. They are just really into it. And so great kids, you know, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
So
that is so funny. So you're teaching math at the time?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, that's just good. Sorry, but is this a time to apologize to Blake about that?
My heart rate's up right now thinking about it.
He is turning red too.
Man, the detail in that story was unbelievable. So at some point, then I guess, is it encouragement from somebody else? Is it your own initiative that you go, you know what, I want to enjoy teaching, enjoy being in education, but the idea of going into administration, where does that come from? Because you end up becoming a principal and spend a significant portion of time doing that. How did that come about?
Well, once again, another step in life that you never think that this is what I want to be, this is what I'm going to be. Yeah. For me, it wasn't. When you look back and you see the men and women who had influence in your life, and they were making an impression on you, and you didn't know it.
Yeah.
And so there were a couple of principles along my path in school that just stood out, and I just, I don't know what to say. You know, they didn't seem like a principal. They seemed more like an uncle or a dad, a big brother.
Yeah.
There was connective tissue spiritually.
Yeah.
And so it was just something that was lying and it kind of dormant, you know, the seed in the soil waiting for the Lord to water it in His time for it to come to fruition in my life. And so I had been still dealing with, am I really a teacher? Because I'm in Shepherd, Texas, okay? I'm making $17,000 a year and still feeling the heat from my parents of making a terrible decision. And when I got my first paycheck after taxes and insurance and everything, and it was $700 or whatever, it's kind of like, okay, now I know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Can I live at home?
Yeah.
Oh man. But no, it was during that time I really saw it, and I hate to bring this, you know, it's life. The administrators there were not connected to the kids whatsoever. They'd walk down the hall and they would chunk paper wads at them. They would call them names, all kinds of stuff. That was just school. It was not a good place to be at the time. And then it's almost an audible voice in the hallway one day telling me that this is what you will fix one day. And so I then had to deal with that.
Yeah.
The heaviness of it, that I'm just, this is first year teaching thing here, and I'm trying to deal with that and grapple with it, that this is really my calling in life. This is where I'm going. And then to be, I guess, given such a challenge early on that you're not going to stay teaching, you're going to move on to other things that you can make more of a difference somewhere else. And so that's how it actually came about. So I had to pray about that for a while, and what that looked like, because as time went on, and I wound up teaching for 10 years, and part of my journey in that was I wanted to have people respect me, that I put in the time in the trenches, so much in administration and things. And I don't want to chase this rabbit too far, but you have people that wind up in powers of position and management and leadership and things of this nature that just never spend a lot of time in the trenches with you. And so you lose some respect there. They don't know that there's not connective tissue, if you will. And so, I had 10 years, and I taught year-round. I've taught summer school, and I never had a summer off since my junior year in college until I retired.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I never got to recharge as a teacher or anything. So I never knew what it was like to have time off.
Yeah.
And so I was working 3 jobs, sometimes 4, in the early years, because you had to, when not the teachers were getting paid absolutely nothing. And so I was waiting tables. I was working at Baskin's in Lufkin, driving down there and at night. Wow. And so you never know where you might see Mr. B.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. So as you make that transition into administration, obviously the day-to-day grind and the pressures are different and unique. All of a sudden you have responsibility as it relates to teachers, to students, and with the way that you seem to be wired is highly relational. So you're going to deeply invest and relate to that, which just takes time. It takes time and attention and work. What was the transition like? What were the dynamics of that shift from teaching into administration, and how were you grappling with, okay, God, what have you called me to do here? How do I honor you in this place of education, in this call? How did you shift within the call from teaching to administration? What was that like?
Well, it was not a quick transition. It is so important to find some type of mentorship, if not apprenticeship, if a confidant that is in the same realm, if you will. How important that is. And so I wanted to make sure that the transition of, I guess, from when you're a teacher, you have, a narrow focus of what your responsibilities are. Yeah. And it's basically 100%, it's about the kids. And so you spend a lot of time with your students, and you have that privilege to be with the kids. And if you ever look and say, okay, I'm going to move, and just like any position, if you change from, in the church structure, if, a youth pastor wants to wind up becoming an associate pastor one day of young adults, and moves up into the lead pastor, And so there's so many things that as you move to a different position, you're going to lose time of connection to what you were previously doing.
Yeah.
It's just the nature of the beast.
Yeah. And
so that was the big question mark is, am I going to want to do that?
Right.
And then, so once, just kind of fast forward and everything, instead of dragging through it, is this, once I did, and the Lord's timing, it was really just seeing His hand and moving in that aspect, and where I would wind up being. And so, turn of events, anyway, I wind up being able to be the assistant principal at Central Heights High School. And then 2 weeks later, the fellow, the team that we were at, he wound up leaving and going somewhere else. So then all of a sudden, I'm the high school principal. The lead principal. And
after 2 weeks?
In 2 weeks, yeah. So Which,
yeah, it's about the time that I came into high school. I was like, I can't get away from this guy. Yeah. I'm kidding. I signed up to be an office aide, so that shows you that I was not that scarred.
There you go.
So,
well, just watch out around the corner.
Yeah, I was always on my guard.
But yes, and so and what was interesting about that is that I never really was praying and feeling that led to be an assistant principal kind of thing. Also, that's how in baseball, I never really chose to coach baseball. But they needed someone, so for 7 years I wound up being assistant baseball coach, and loved it. And so as time moves on, looking at spending time in the principalship, then obviously now you have to deal with a lot of adults, a lot of parents, a lot of policies and all of those other things that take time away from being able to spend any time with the students. But I made sure that I did, because I remember what an influence several of my principals were in my life as I reflected back. And I wanted to make sure, so I stayed involved in students' lives as much as I could. Yeah. And so that's, and kind of chase that rabbit, and just we were talked about where I'm at in my life now and stuff like that, is that what a blessing it was that the Lord, and I tell this story, the natural next thing would be to go to a superintendent step, okay? That kind of thing. And so I fought that forever. And I said, I must be wrong. All these people are saying things, you need to do it, blah, 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 blah. So I go, and the head there at SFA had come out to the school. We've had her come out several times, and it's been several years, so I don't remember her name. But anyway, she was just asking me, which was super sweet, calling me, hey, come finish up your superintendency. Love for you to do it, come see me. So I said, okay, I will. And Kendall, I sat down in that lady's office. She's super sweet. I have no idea what we talked about, but I thought I was going to throw up. I was spiritually and physically sick to the point of I had to wrap it up quickly and just told her I need to go. And so that I experienced the Spirit close the door immediately, physically, mentally. That this is not where I need you to be. Even though these people are saying these things, do not listen to the world. You need to listen to me. And so, and I will say that this is part of the path where I started a little bit removing the Lord out of his number one spot. And those that have been through this journey with me know this. And whenever it may sound good, you're a teacher, education or whatever, and it might be, you're in the ministry, or you're in the mission field or whatever. Even those noble things that we choose to do, we can put those on a pedestal and make them an idol before the Lord. And that's what happened to me. And so I confess that sin, and I apologize. And it was such a growth time for me. And it was a true blessing how we were successful, Blake, to take a little country school. And we would wound up the top 100 school in Texas Monthly and winning these state championships and being all these things, which means nothing in eternity. What it means is an opportunity to glorify the Lord. Mm-hmm. And so the Lord had to get my attention again, that make sure you keep me first. These kids depend on it. And so I've had wonderful connections through the years with being able to pray and witness and speak into kids' lives. And it's not about high test scores and glory and state titles and being on television and all of these things that can so distract you because they're earthly and they're temporary. But how quickly then we turn on each other if we chase after the things that the Lord does not want us to be chasing after. And we're to chase after Him, to be after His heart. And so those things were certainly an earthly pleasure and wonderful things to hear. And, and Blake being, a great student, and I'm telling you, I've never in my life experienced that. I've been at some very bad schools, and so to come to a place like this and be connected with great people, it was such an honor, And so, and fast forward through all the years, and we get to the point where, like I said, my first love, it's out of Revelation, and I mentioned earlier. Doing a study, Pastor Greg Laurie, deep dive into Revelation, and speaking to the churches, and one of them is you've lost your first love. It's so convicting, and so I remember my wife standing on the stage here at Fredonia Hill on the praise team one Sunday when we're really going through it with some bad things. And she couldn't sing. She sat and cried with her head in her hands. And it was, I knew then I had to get on my hands and knees. And whatever shakes out of my future, it will be all to the glory of the Lord. That I will not have a work emblem on my sleeve. I will have Christ on my sleeve. And so I had allowed my life, and Kendall, you'd mentioned beforehand that you've known me since I was a different person to where I am now, and to the point where you said the word workaholic, which I'm ashamed of.
Yeah, I've heard you use that, that as you've reflected back on how you got caught. I guess that would be the phrase, kind of caught up, like you're describing, but experienced a dramatic shift in that. And I think I caught the tail end, of that, or I don't even know if you'd say that. I feel like I began to know you kind of in the midst of that transformation, because that moment with Shelley, I wasn't around for that.
No,
but that seems to be a real inflection point. Where was that moment in this journey where, I guess, because what seems like you're describing is that's kind of a standout moment where you begin to say, okay, priorities are off, time is off, heart is off, I've got to reorder some things. Is that moment where that shift begins to take place? How did you know it's time to start unwinding this a little bit? I've got to shift back to the right priorities.
Yeah. Well, adversity, when bad things happen, that's a lot of times when the Lord allows those things to happen to you, and it says, when trials come, not if they come. It's when they come. And so that's when, I had to get on my knees and seek the Lord's face and forgiveness and direction and what this may look like. I felt as if I was doing the right thing, busy being good and doing all these hours of everything because it's for the kids, it's for the community, it's for these things, and don't get me wrong, not all of it was bad, but it was just way too much. And this is a whole thing. Kind of I was writing maybe a little sermon / Bible study kind of idea about, how here in America, since where we are, we like to chase the capitalism, versus Christianity. And we might think that they're married, and they are not. Yeah. And so, And so we all kind of have been brought, and I say we all have, and generally speaking, the American dream is, if you're brought up the way we are, is we work hard and to attain the American dream. And we hear these things, we're taught these things, and that is what supersedes the Lord in so many lives. And it became that for me, is where I was not seeking necessarily what the Lord's will was for my life and our lives, and to do those things only after if I had enough time, after being exhausted and doing everything it was for my job, then I might be able to. And so
so what was the process like of beginning to unwind that? Like what are the first steps? How do you start to get back to center, if you will, where the Lord becomes is placed back in His place, His proper place in your life? How did that go? Kind of from that moment of realization. What are those next steps?
Well, excuse me. Some high water marks, I will say, for me. We had a men's Bible study group. I don't know what you really call it. Off and on as you do at a church. You have different studies or different things you'd have events or whatnot. And so I remember being in one of these with several of our older gentlemen in the church, and of all things, we wound up studying Beth Moore.
Nice.
the big hair, 80s hair video with the study book and stuff. Yeah. And the study book's legit. I mean, just excellent workbooks to work through.
Oh, yeah.
And to do it with a group of men from 21 years old to 91 years old was just phenomenal. And getting to talk to the older men and listen to their life stories. And before I forget, I'll just jump out there real quick and just say kudos to Ken Autry. Visited with him here a couple of years ago when I'm trying on this, what does this retirement thing look like?
Yeah.
And just simple words of wisdom from a brother that said, Andy, you need to give it at least 4 years to learn how to live this different life. And boy, you talk about a weight coming off my shoulders.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so the community there, that I had Ken there that can speak into my life. And it doesn't have to be some huge, philosophical or seminary-based kind of answer to things. It was just he spoke his heart as the Lord led him to give me some wisdom that could help. And so anyway, back to your original question there, that how did that start changing professionally in my life? What did that look like from that point?
Yeah, because you didn't just immediately retire. I mean,
absolutely not. This is at the height of everything.
Right.
Still a high school principal, going 90-0, 70 to 80 hours a week. And then on top of every other thing that we had going on too. And at this point, the girls are getting older. They're in activities going every which way.
Yeah.
And, we're putting 50,000 miles a year on automobiles and buses and everything else I had to do. But, it was pretty crazy. And then just having to let go of that. And say, okay, you're spending a lot of time with your buddies at TEA reading all their paperwork and doing all of that for whatever. How much time are you spending in the Word over here with the Lord? Or my little crutch is Our Daily Bread devotional. I've kept it ever since I was a kid. Those of you out there in radio land might know exactly what I'm talking about. Of course, they have an app now and everything else that but, hey, do you even have 5 minutes to read a devotional? And so that was kind of my crutch. Well, at this time in my life, this is all I can do. And so the Lord got the leftovers. And so, like I confess, this is, not the life that the Lord intends for us to lead. We may feel good about it because we're winning bread for our families. We've got a noble job, but it is not serving the Lord wholeheartedly and putting Him first.
Yeah.
It's, I had it backwards. there, and that happened over time, and so it's kind of like a climax, and then okay, how are we going to you've come to the peak of this stressed out situation. The Lord has woken you up and had mercy on you here. So where are you going to go with this? And so that's when I had to really okay, you need to be studying the Word. So go to this men's Bible study, get in the Word. And no idea, of course, it's going to be Beth Moore, but that was not the only one. But it was kind of funny when we started studying. That was the first thing. Daniel, I believe, is the one we did.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah.
And it's a good one.
Yeah, I took some students through that one time.
Yeah. And so that, and of course, obviously, it brought our marriage even tighter. And so being a model to our daughters, as they're seeing this as teenagers getting ready to go off to college and that kind of thing, what they need to see in what truly is important in your Christian walk. So those are things that were self-reflective in time, and so I just started saying, Lord, I need to back off of the professional responsibilities, if you will. And so in my particular situation, it's not everyone's, but I did not have to go anywhere. It happened naturally there at Central Heights as we've grown. We need to build more campuses and all of this kind of stuff. And so superintendent comes to me and says, hey, we're fixing to have 2 separate campuses, and so do you want to stay with the high school or you want to go and take over the junior high? And so I prayed about it, and the Lord said, hello, you wanted to have time to, back away from so much time and involvement so you can spend more time with me and maybe what I want you to do. And so that's when I made a shift. After 11 years of a high school principal, I went into take over the middle school or junior high. The old school, we say junior high.
Yeah.
But it took me 2.5 years to learn to say middle school. But so that's 11 more years at the middle school. And I know this, everybody's going to fall off their chair, but, love junior high, right, Blake?
So good.
Because we can have fun, baby.
Yeah, that's right.
One thing that stands true the test of time is that a junior high kid will always act like a junior high kid.
Yeah. You can guarantee it.
The letdown about high schoolers is they act like junior high kids.
But a junior high kid always acts.
They always act their age, so you know what you're getting. So
that's funny.
Which was right up my alley because I'm pretty much just a year or two older than a junior high kid. So I just
Andy, I'd love for you to speak into something that I think is, I don't know, it's a conversation that I hear often, and I'm right at 40, and I feel like my generation, and Blake, I don't know if we were raised by parents that still had a extremely high view of work. You work hard; it's part of your character, and it's a extraordinarily important thing. And I think as you go back a few generations, you certainly continue to see that, and but I think that those generations will also tell you, and on some level, work, like you were saying, became an idol, and was there were a lot of not healthy things that came out of that. And then you swing forward into generations that are much younger than us, and they've kind of swung back the other way. Where they don't want to kind of make those mistakes again, but I would say struggle with a level of resilience, and are trying to recapture rest, and sometimes that's at the loss of hard work, and those kind of are, that pendulum seems to generationally kind of be swinging back and forth. So I'm curious, somebody that has gone all the way red line in the work side of things, and then mid to late career had to untangle that and reestablish, your priorities, not at the loss of hard work and excellence in the workplace, but an honoring of the Lord and having your rhythms and routines with Him as first place, and also working. How would you say, or maybe the question is, how do we get to that balance? How do we get to that place where, biblically speaking, we are working hard as unto the Lord, and our work is worship? I mean, we clearly see in the book of Genesis that God intended for human beings to work, and their work to be a reflection in creation of His goodness without it becoming an idol. So here's what I would say. I'm 40. I'm kind of mid-career. You're sitting in Blake and I are in that same spot. What would you say to us as we are in that spot? How do we do that well? How do we continue to work hard unto the Lord, and yet not fall off the cliff where work becomes an idol? How do we achieve that sweet spot that you've had to wrestle with? I'm curious what your thoughts would be.
Yeah, that's kind of heavy because, like you alluded to, and my upbringing as well is that, and you said it well. Work is highly thought of. That you have a good work ethic, and so what is that? In my humble opinion of what that looks like now that I've pretty much have lived a pretty full life, approaching 60 years old. That's the new 30 or 40.
That's right. That's right. You're a young man.
My back is still not understanding what that means, but well, we work as if working unto the Lord, meaning that where's your heart and your purpose in your work? And are you working for things that are earthly, or are you working for things that have spiritual value?
Yeah.
And looking at the amount of time, and so I'll go practical first. So as I had young people come into the profession, and especially coaches that are doing double duty and things of this nature, so I call it the rule of 8. Okay, it's not anyway. So we're discussing this. I'll go up to the board. I'll write the number 24. And then I'll split it apart like we're doing prime factorization, Blake.
Blake just passed out.
Had flashbacks.
He's not with us right now.
He's looking for a pencil and paper right now. That's okay, Blake. And then I'll draw 3 8s underneath it. Okay? And so if you haven't picked up on it yet, what that is 24 hours in a day. And in our past, in America, we came up with the rule of 8. 8 hours is your basic work day. You have 8 hours of pleasure, and you have 8 hours of sleep. And so this is kind of the American structure of the day. And so what I use that for is to say, as far as I know, the Lord has not added any time to the day. It's still 24. And for the most part, a typical workday is still 8 hours. For the most part, the medical community says a good night's sleep is 8 hours. And then you have 8 hours for pleasure, which is family time or whatever, recreation. If that doesn't fit your schedule, then you tell me, where are you going to take from to add to? So if you are spending more time at work, more than 8 hours, and you're spending 10 hours a day, those 2 extra hours have to come from somewhere. So are you going to give up your family time, or are you going to give up your sleep? So you see where I'm going with this. Yeah. And so that is where your value system will come into play really quickly. So it's a practical way to look at it, because everything is tied to that. Whether you go personal, first of all, when you get up in the morning, your quiet time with the Lord and how much time that looks like. And we all have gone through our walk with Christ, and I did the silly thing of saying, I remember me and Shelley trying this as a young married couple. Okay, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. Let's pray together in bed before we go to sleep.
Yeah.
And if we laying there praying, and she would go to sleep on me.
Yeah, while you're praying.
While I'm praying. And then
you spice it up, man. You got to pray with a little more excitement.
Well, your voice is so monotone and you're so quiet, and it just puts me to sleep. So that we don't do that much anymore.
Yeah. You have to find new rhythms.
Oh, man.
Well, I love that because, I think what you're saying there is, and it is so practical, that rule of 8. But what you're saying is, from the very beginning, we are acknowledging that we are from dust and will return to dust. We are not infinite, and we have a certain amount of time that God has given us, and it is our responsibility to recognize that, because so much of this seems to fall off the rails when our values shift and we begin, as you said, to idolize things. And by the way, I think it's important to say that idolizing worldly things is not just about what you make and what you have. The idolization of worldly things can also come with the way in which achievement satisfies you and gives you identity. That we can get lost in that just as much as we can the pursuit of
well said.
Of wealth. Mm-hmm. But I've got a responsibility to steward the time that God has given me before the Lord as worship, and that's got to be the beginning. I don't have forever. You've given me this moment, and so I'm gonna steward that time back to you. But we kind of think, well, no, I am this infinite creature with all sorts of time. I can do whatever I want. Yeah. With my time, and that's just not the case. So I love that the rule of 8 is a really helpful starting point. Andy, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you stopping in and chatting about these things. I think your experience, and I hope you're listening. I hope you listen to the reality of what Andy faced in that moment where he realized things were off and needed to begin to put things back together. And man, if that is you, if you just kind of have found yourself lost chasing things that just don't quite matter, there is never a better time than right now to start this process that Andy described of just going, okay, God, it's out of whack and I need to return to you. And I want you to hear him say that didn't happen. He didn't wake up the next morning and everything was just hunky-dory and he just had figured it all out. He described a process of years of beginning to learn again, to submit his life unto the Lord. And so it's just one step at a time. But man, I really appreciate you coming by. And
that's well said, Kendall. And let me just jump in quick and I want to give glory to the Lord for something on that. Like you said, it was a long journey, and he gave me the opportunity, and a shout out to Cliff Laster and Mark Lushner. Mark, was a member of the church here, friends that go way back in education, and they needed help way out, and they're out at Slocum and needed somebody to come out and teach math. Blake,
poor kids.
And so, hey, could you come out and teach in the mornings? Do a little halftime thing, and I'd been, quote, retired for a year. And I tell you what, that was just, it was hard. It's an hour drive every day back and forth. And as I mentioned earlier, my back's not the greatest. And so, it was a little drive. And but you talk about a blessing to get back to the roots. That really just a healing balm that the Lord gave me. I could pray. Woo, here we go, baby. We shucked some corn, and I loved it. Loved it. We prayed. We hugged. We cried. I helped and it was high school, so I had juniors and seniors, and they didn't know what in the world they're doing with their life. And just the opportunity that the Lord gave me to share and witness with them. And I just cherish that. And so that's talking about, how does that look, and whether, am I making the right decisions and things of that nature. It all boils down to, for me, is how much time are we allowing the Lord to utilize us for His kingdom. Yeah. And so that's where it needs to be shaken out and put through the fire, and let the Lord's purification let you see, okay, this here is what the Lord will have me do for His kingdom, and pray through that, and let the Spirit give you peace over it. And, and we're all on this journey together, and that's one thing I just think so much about, spending time with older folks, and picking their brain, and, our Christian brothers and sisters that have shared their experiences, so that as we go through this, and you mentioned, okay, we got a new group of millennials, if you will, that age group or whatnot, and, what does this look like? People are, we went from workaholics to, hey, I want to maybe work at home in my pajamas. Yeah. And so I think that's so important that we continue to encourage one another in this walk, and know that we do need to allow the Lord to always remain our first love. Yeah.
Man, that's so good. I want to try to leave it right there with a bit of a challenge. Man, if you're kind of in a spot, maybe you're younger than I said I am, kind of right there in the middle. If you're younger than I am, or or in my age, seek out the wisdom of brothers and sisters in Christ who have journeyed in front of you. Go seek them out. Make it a priority. Invite them to a lunch or to your home for dinner or a cup of coffee, and just ask for them to share some of their story and experience. You will gain so much, as Andy just described. You will gain so much by that fellowship. And if you are older, man, be available. Be available to the next generation.
Yeah, absolutely.
To open up, as Andy's just done with us. He's given a great model for that. Open up your bumps and bruises and your the things that haven't gone great, as a way of putting God's grace on display. And the younger groups need to hear that. We need to hear where you've been successful, but we're also where you failed, and how God has put things back together. So make that a point to try to seek that out in this next time.
Hey, two quick things, because while I have Andy here, I do want to say a couple things.
Here we go.
You talked about wisdom for the next generation. I just thought of something as he was saying that. I don't know, it was probably 10 years ago. You and I were at a chili cook-off.
Here we go.
At David Russell's house.
Okay.
And, we were young in marriage and had a few little kids and broke as all get out. Uh-huh. And I remember you encouraging me and just talked about some things whenever you were first married and had little girls, and I walked away from that really encouraged and had hope. At the time, I was like, man, what am I doing? I can't really provide for my family right now. And you just spoke simple wisdom into my life, and it made a huge difference.
Thank you, brother.
And that's not even what I was going to say in the first place. You called me Blake the Snake for my entire
I wasn't going to bring it up. No.
No, here's the thing. My oldest daughter's named Emery Blake. So I always call her Emery Snake all the time. And the other day, Clara, my middle daughter, goes, Daddy, why you call Emery Snake? And I said, well, I had a teacher in school that always called me Snake. And I don't know. It's one of the things that I hate most in life is snakes, but that's what he called me. And but I just want you've had a profound impact on my life. I know that for sure. And thousands of other students' lives over the years. And the kindness and the respect that you gave us, that's long lasting, and I carry that in every aspect of my life to this day. So, thank you for coming on and giving me the chance to say that.
Well, thank you, Blake. That's so encouraging. Thanks,
man.
Love you.
Well, since everybody else is crying, I'll have to wrap the show. Yeah. Listen, if you want to reach out to us, I'll do Blake's job.
We're manly men in here right
now.
Right.
That's right. If you want to reach out to us, Blake, I got it. Just sit this one out.
All right.
You can. We are STC. I don't remember actually. Fredonia.org. Yeah, I couldn't remember our email. Oh, I failed you, my friend. Seriously, we love to hear from you. Love to hear how these stories impact you. We got some awesome guests to come. We're all going to go find the Kleenex, and we will see you next time. Adios.